Hello, my name is Jacob and I will be refuting the claim that the cons of animal testing have outweighed the pros of animal testing. To preview, the controversy between two opposing sides of science and ethics is how animals are used and treated in environments of testing and experimentation. The original major claim stated that the reasons to leave behind animal testing has outweighed the defense of it. To clarify that, the advocate is stating how the pros of animal testing do not outweigh the pros of alternative methods for animal testing. For example, the use of a mouse to test certain cures for vaccines, or the testing of human embryo to test the causes of cancer, or on our own genes. There were three secondary claims to support the major claim that stated the incapability of the Animal Welfare Act to provide safe coverage of all animals, the unreliable results of animal test subjects, and there are new alternative methods of testing that have risen which will eliminate any fuss over animal testing and provide dependable humanly related data. Again, those were the three secondary claims to support the major claim. For the first secondary claim that I stated, the incapability of the Animal Welfare Act to provide safe coverage of all animals, the advocate uses the reasoning that the Animal Welfare Act does not cover the majority of animals which are tested. The Animal Welfare Act, last updated in 2015, states that the purpose of the act is to only set standards for how the animals are maintained at a facility before testing is done, not how all animals should be taken care of and protected during the stages of testing. For example, they are meant to take care of a rat, give food and water before testing is done. The testing itself is not what the act protects. It was also stated that animals are not closely monitored and labs are failing to meet the standards of the Animal Welfare Act. This is a false accusation because the failing refers to how the animals were tested, not how they were taken care of before testing, which is what the Animal Welfare Act protects and regulates very closely. So what I'm saying is that the Animal Welfare Act itself protects how the animals are treated before testing. For the second secondary claim, it was stated that the test results of animal test subjects are unreliable. The advocate states that research isn't completely accurate and has proven harmful to us at times. While true, there was no context provided to how many successful medications and vaccines have come out due to animal testing versus the few failures that were stated by the advocate. It was also stated that there are numerous differences between the anatomy of an animal and that of a human, which does not make them a trustworthy comparison. However, there is no evidence to support this in her claim. To refute this point, I found an article written by Craig Venter, a biotechnologist, from November of 2011 that stated how all mammals are descended from a common ancestor. Therefore, all mammals, including humans, have very similar organs that work the same way controlled via the bloodstream and the nervous system. Of course, there are minor differences, but these are far outweighed by the remarkable similarities. Again, this was said by Craig Venter, a biotechnologist from November of 2011. For example, pigs have a monogastric digestive system, the very same we humans have, so we can examine the effects of medications on them and get the same results we get from humans. For the third secondary claim, it was stated that newer alternative methods of testing have risen that eliminate the usefulness of animal testing and provide dependable data. To support this, the advocate stated how there are many methods such as vitro fertilization, stem cell extraction, genetic testing, and microdosing. These are all tests that are done on human embryos. There is much controversy on this topic because all of these methods require the use, as I said, of embryos and usually the sacrifices of them, as well as fetuses for stem cells, for example. To state that these alternatives are better is not necessarily a claim of fact because all the ethical controversies surrounding both topics. Another point used to support the third claim was that alternative methods were supported by the Center of Alternative Methods to Animal Experiments. This organization does not provide any grounds for their data collection, nor does it provide source sources of the data, making it effectively an unreliable and biased source. To conclude, the perception of animal testing is quite negative, and those who oppose it hide context of statistics and do not provide sources for their data collection or citation for those who collected it. Animal testing has led to many more medical breakthroughs and has also prevented the use of human embryos or adult test subjects to test the potential dangers of chemicals and other universal unknowns. Thank you.
Well, the opening section is a little problematic because it felt like you spent a minute and a half saying the same thing 3 different ways, summarizing what the advocate's argument was, and I didn't think you needed to do that. When you got to the secondary points and you labeled them, I thought you started being a lot clearer, and when you got to the body of the argument, I think things went a lot more smoothly. Except on the first point where I think that you were not really helping your cause very much, because if we were having this debate, and my argument was that the Animal Welfare Act doesn't really protect animals very well, and you come back and say, well, it's not meant to do that, I would just say, okay, I'll accept your premise. The Animal Welfare Act provides no benefit whatsoever, so animals are treated inhumanely, cruelly, badly. You agree with that, I agree with that. The only thing that happens is that they get to eat well before they're treated badly. Big deal. You know, I'd agree with your premise. That's not really a dispute on that issue. I don't think that helps your position. I think that you need a better response on that point. On the second point, though, I think that you have a very good premise here that needs a little bit more elaboration, that there's no context because we're not given any comparison between the successes and the failures. And you suggest that the advocate has maybe presented a few examples of failures. I think that that's a good point. However, I'm now asking, where's the context? Tell me about the examples of all the successes that you say exist, and maybe give us a little bit of contrast to the few failures that the advocate presented. So not only do they not do it, you don't do it either, and I think that's a little bit problematic. You did substantiate the analogy, I thought that the advocate had challenged, suggesting that the animals are substantially different. I thought that you did a pretty good job on that. And then on the third point, where you're talking about the alternatives, I think you get a little sidetracked on the ethical issue about whether or not using human embryos or fetuses for research is appropriate, comparing that to whether using animals is appropriate or not. I think there's a valid question about that on if it's a value issue that we're talking about, but the real question is supposed to be an issue of fact, and do these things produce the same kinds of results that you get from animal research, which is the factual question. That I didn't really get much information on, except that we got a challenge to the source that they used, which I thought was an interesting challenge, but I mean, there's no authority making this challenge. It just sounds like it's you. I looked at the source and they look pretty damn biased to me. I think you need something a little bit more effective than that. All right, thank you.